Hello and welcome back, everyone, to the fourth round of the weekly of the Eternal Tournament Series Season 3. We are jumping into game here with an old friend of the stream who hasn't been around for a little bit, or at least not featured, Unearthly, our resident Rakano player. And he's going up against Illunga, who is on some sort of spicy fire time shadow token sacrifice type deck. This is looking really interesting.
Yeah, Illunga's build is very interesting, especially because they are not playing Zine and Obelisk. The payoff for having all of these tokens and stuff is Brimstone Altar, allowing them to just throw all of these guys at their face and eventually killing their opponent over time. Also getting value from the Vault of Praxis, so you can keep drawing tokens and keep shooting them at your opponent's face.
Yes, very true. And we see Unearthly off to a somewhat slow start here. Definitely for Rakano, no 1 or 2 drops follow up. But we do see him with the important cards in his deck. We see the Silverwing Familiar and this Deep Forge Plate that he will hopefully get suited up with.
And Illunga's deck is certainly one of the kinds of decks that gets heavily punished by Silverwing Familiar. They do not have a huge density of removal, and all it's targeted. So this Deep Forge Plate on the Familiar might just end up winning the game in a few turns.
Yeah, Illunga will. It looks like he will have a chance though to Madness and he can Madness to pop off the Aegis, but he's going to have to find a second Madness or a Combust follow it up with to actually be able to take care of the Silverwing Familiar. So it is true. This is going to be very difficult for him to get around. And Unearthly deciding if he really wants to play this Valkyrie Enforcer as a tempo play here.
It always feels bad to play just the 3-mana 3/3 flyer. In this spot, I'm not sure he needs to. He knows he can plate the Familiar next turn. That's going to be a lot of pressure. He does decide to do it because he wants to get an additional threat there in case there is some kind of removal. But I think it was defensible to not play it as well.
Yeah, I think honestly, given the deck, you're probably comfortable playing it. You would have liked to have silenced this Ephemeral Wisp, but it's not the end of the world, and I think the extra damage you're going to push here is probably worth it. This is going to speed the clock up a considerable amount. We are looking at 2 more turns for Unearthly to go ahead and take this game. So Illunga more than likely actually just going to have to Madness devour this Valkyrie Enforcer.
I think Illunga needs to spend this turn drawing cards, trying to get to their Annihilate or their Combust, and just take the damage from this turn, and then maybe next turn Madness, Combust, and kill off these threats, or at least the Silverwing Familiar.
That's very true. The Silverwing Familiar is presenting basically an unbeatable force with the 6 damage it's bringing in each turn and the 6 life steal, so providing a 12-point swing every single turn. And that is going to be very difficult for Illunga to deal with. And in fact, it just looks like he is dead. Could not find any of those Combusts or Annihilates that he was going to need. So it looks like Unearthly will be taking a very fast game 1 with Rakano.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a way where Illunga can actually draw another card and have mana to both Combust and Annihilate or Madness Combust. I think this might be the end of the road.
Yeah, I think this is certainly the end of the road here. He can Madness devour the Valkyrie Enforcer. This will buy him.
He does get a turn from this if Illunga or if Unearthly does not have anything else to pump the Silverwing.
Yeah,
so he's 3 damage.
Yeah, so he will save himself 1 turn this way, and this will give him a chance to try and draw. All right, I think we are live and back, folks. Sorry about that with the slight obs broadcast. As you can see, Illunga has managed to put down quite a number of little tokens, but Unearthly has this Soulfire Drake that he is pushing back with. Illunga has an Annihilate, though, so he will have a way to answer it, and there is an interesting little card hanging out in Illunga's hand that I don't often see. It goes by the name of Scrap Tank.
Yeah, Scrap Tank is very underrated. It's very good in these tokens type decks, providing additional bodies and getting a payoff for killing your cards. We did see Unearthly start with a very slow draw. The only creature they had in their opening hand was Soulfire Drake, and it looks like in the intervening turns that is all they have drawn. So they're kind of all in on this. They are actually going to get an Oni Rodin off of the Shogun Scepter because Illunga decided not to annihilate main phase. They wanted to get the Scrap Tank out there. So now Unearthly actually has a second creature to deploy this Deepforge plate and additional equipments on, where they previously did not have an additional target.
Yeah, we are going to see what amounts to a very brutal cleanup here. We're going to see the unit cleaned off, or at least attempted. Finest Hour going to come in here and save the Oni Ronin from the Suffocate. But we do see that Illunga Madness the Soulfire Drake from Unearthly, and he will devour it, which will give him the Entomb effect, which is extra brutal. Unearthly really wanted the Entomb effect off the Soulfire Drake to give him flying and charge on some of his units, but unfortunately not going to get a chance to do that, going to lose his threat, and very, very likely lose this game. It's going to be a difficult position for him to come back into without some life gain here. Like, he's definitely going to be able to assemble Voltron on this Oni Ronin if he wants to, but we know Illunga will have ways to clean that up in the coming turns.
Yeah, it's at the stage in the game where Illunga's managed to cultivate quite a large board. They can go wide around this Oni Ronin regardless of how big it becomes, and it's not really even going to get big enough to attack this turn. They can't attack with the Finest Hour in this, but I can't imagine that Illunga would block.
Illunga will probably block here, yeah, just like
pump up the Scrap Tank, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. To create such a large threat with Scrap Tank that the Oni Ronin can't actually block it profitably. He will be able to trade with the Finest Hour, but it's not... well, I say it's not going to matter, but I don't think it will, yeah. And we do see Illunga choosing to use that Annihilate, and yeah, an absolute control of the board now. Unearthly gonna have to have Familiar, and even then, I'm pretty sure that's not going to be enough.
It was also interesting to see Illunga playing very cautiously his last turn. He did have lethal through, like, a Protect. He had 2 removal spells for the Oni Ronin, and the Scrap Tank was lethal. So, might have missed that there.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's not going to matter.
Yeah, a little bit, but yeah, not mattering in the end. We see Combust taking care of the Soulfire Drake, and Illunga taking game 2. So that was actually a really nice comeback out of him. I wish we had actually been able to commentate the full game, but Unearthly with a very slow hand, and that's kind of what Illunga is looking for, is to capitalize on Unearthly not having those very, like, powerful starts, which both of the games we've seen him play so far have been slower starts by Rakano standards, waiting until turn 3 generally to really take any action.
It was also interesting to see there that Unearthly brought in Ruins for that game, and you saw him immediately sideboard them out, because there is no Xenobelisk. Maybe he assumed there was and then looked and saw that there wasn't, because the only thing that really hits is the Vault of Praxis, and I can't imagine the game is going to be about that card if it's going the way Unearthly wants it to.
Yeah, exactly. I can't imagine it going that way either. We are getting into the next game, though, and this is an interesting hand out of Unearthly. He's got the 2-drop and the 3-drop with the Deepforge plates to go the distance in the late game, and Illunga keeping an interesting hand as well. Has his Madness and Combust combo, but doesn't actually have anything else to do here. Lack of units going to be a big problem for Illunga as these turns progress.
Yeah, both decks are situated in such a way where if the other person doesn't really do anything, they can punish them. The Rakano deck more so, but if whoever gets ahead in the early game, neither deck really has the tools to come back from that.
Yeah, it is going to be difficult for one of these decks to come back, and now that Illunga is on the back foot, it's going to be challenging. The Madness Combust type combos would in general be very strong, but Rakano and Unearthly's build specifically is playing these Silverwing familiars which have Aegis, and that Aegis is just really shutting down Illunga's game plan. And even more so now that we're going to see this Shogun Scepter coming down. This will at least open up a Madness Combust target for us, like a nice 2-for-2 here, but it's not amazing. Silverwing Familiar is going to be unchecked if he takes this line.
Yeah, this game is definitely about this Silverwing Familiar. Either that's going to die or Illunga is. So yes, that Illunga could Madness on the champion, kill the Oni Ronin, but those cards frankly don't matter. It's really whether or not Illunga is going to be able to answer this Silverwing Familiar.
Yeah, and it does not look like he's going to be able to. I would have been interested to see if Illunga considered the Combust line that turn, like trying to combust the Silverwing Familiar down to do a Madness into Devour play on the following turn. But it looks like he's just going to do it all at one shot.
Yeah, it was saving this turn. That's why we didn't see blocks in the Oni Ronin, so we could actually set up a way to deal with this Familiar, even though a second Familiar has come down. So
yeah, and here's an interesting question. What can he actually draw at this point to still get him out of this situation? Because, well, first off, Unearthly can brick on power, is what's happening, and that's at least slowed the game down enough that it's given Illunga a chance, but I'm not entirely sure what his draw steps need to look like to get him out of this game.
Yeah, I don't see really a way forward here, and now there's just too many threats in addition to the Silverwing Familiar. The Crown Watch Paladin also has Aegis for whichever one of these Deep Forge plates does not get taken by the Sabotage. So I don't see how Illunga can survive much longer, if even next turn, actually.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like this game is going to go to next turn. There's just going to be too many units pressuring him down. And Illunga playing it out regardless, but unfortunately not going to matter here. Unearthly going to clean up this series 2-2-1 with Rakano. And, you know, for as much as everybody hates on Rakano, and even I do at times, it is a little refreshing to see Rakano coming back, just a little bit. Like, it's nice to see it on occasion. There's been so much Stone Scar domination recently, and definitely in the tournament series in the last 2 weeks. So to see Rakano, a deck that I think only had one of our 56 players last week actually play it, good to see it have a little bit of representation to actually do well. And I believe Unearthly was actually 3-0 going into that game. So this will put him up to 4-0. I might be mistaken on that.
I believe that is the case. But yeah, Rakano is one of the decks that heavily punishes people who are not equipped to deal with it. As we saw that game, even something as trivial as like Silverwing Familiar just went unchecked and run roughshod over the game. I generally don't like Silverwing Familiar because you need to have it plus something for it to be very good. But when it is very good, it just wins the game. So the upside is definitely worth it and is paying dividends for Unearthly today.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a backup match for you all, so we are going to go ahead and jump into that. We are ready, but it is Komodo on Armory versus Paradox on Feln Aggro. Or, yeah, some version of Feln anyway. I believe this is Feln Aggro since I am seeing a Twilight Raptor down, and that's not a card I very often see in Feln.
Yeah, I would assume that they are a lot more aggressively slanted than the traditional Feln builds. I doubt we'll see anything like Black Sky Harbinger or Zendel's Gift.
Ooh, very interesting. Cabal Countess coming down here for Paradox, and this is going to hopefully allow him to pressure a little bit. We might have to see the Valkyrie Enforcer get chumped here in a harsh rule on the following turn. So that will be a good clear for Paradox, or Komodo rather. Ooh, and an Auric Runehammer to follow it up. So this will be nice. Yeah, he's just going to go ahead and get the free Warcry trigger and harsh rule the board. And I would be curious to see Paradox hand, because he's definitely going to need some very solid cards to reload with here. 2 Throne Wardens and an Auric Runehammer can be very difficult to stop when Armory gets to this point in the game.
Certainly. Like, pretty much every creature in Feln dies to the 5-2 Runehammer. Runehammer is so much better at 5-2 than it is at 4-1. You'll always get like a 2-for-1 off of it against decks like Feln. And now we see like these 2 Throne Wardens are just going to like come down and essentially act like Flame Tongue combos. But this Umbran Reaper actually does make it a little bit awkward for Komodo. He kind of has to take 10 to the dome here.
Yeah, he does. And I'm not sure about this, the sequencing there specifically. I'm not a huge armory player myself, but I kind of would have figured you would have liked to have set the armor up after your health.
No, certainly. Yeah, for subsequent weapons, you would want the armor there.
Yeah, so a little bit of an interesting sequencing to go ahead and actually put the armor down first to tank it. But I guess the distinction is if you do have a stash, then it does bring the weapon back as a bigger weapon, I believe. So that comes back as a 5/6.
Oh, wow. We see that this backlash is huge because Komodo really needed to rise for a Runehammer there. And even in that case, he was still taking 5 from this Impending Doom, but now he might just die to it over 2 turns. Even this Throne Warden might buy him a turn, but he's not really making forward progress. And there's the Valkyrie off the top. That'll be huge. They can gang block that together with the Throne Warden.
Yeah, that will be very big. He'll actually just be able to double block it with the 2 Throne Wardens, so he'll only have to lose one of those, and he'll be able to keep his threat in the air. And that might have been the turning point for Moto, but we'll see. Paradox could definitely still have some other really nasty threats that are going to prevent Komodo from being able to start actually swinging or really putting any pressure on Paradox.
Yeah, those were like some pretty rapid fire swingy turns. We saw Komodo look like he was very far ahead, and then the Umbran Reaper bring it back to parity, and then the backlash on the rise to the challenge. And now this sort of Ikaria. Now the game is pretty firmly in Komodo's hands, but based upon the last 2 turns, I don't feel confident saying that. Maybe we might see a Cabal Countess here providing a good attacker. Who knows?
Yeah, and there's definitely some sort of prompt. So yeah, in fact, it is a Cabal Countess.
And that's actually very, very good. It forces a chump block here.
Yeah, it does indeed. It's going to force the chump block here, and it's going to make it awkward to handle this next turn as well, since he can't swing into the Cabal Countess without dying.
Yeah, he has to chump block again because he drew this Fire Sigil. So now the game swung back to Paradox.
Yeah, no, Paradox absolutely taken over. That was one of those threats that he really needed to see, was this Cabal Countess.
Yeah, this card has been exceptional in this matchup. It's very mana intensive. You have to play 3 mana to cast it and then 4 mana to ultimate, but it attacks through pretty much everything. And then the harsh roll off the top to answer it. So now Komodo is at least stabilized. They're on pretty precarious footing though. It's 6 life with a 3 power weapon.
Yeah, it will be very easy for Paradox to take this game if he can find a couple threats. And interesting decision there. Putting the Beastcaller's Amulet on just to force the weapon off of Komodo. So, I guess I do support the decision, since Komodo has been picking up power and he's been playing slow. Did at least get off the Sword of Ikaria, but here we go. Now here's an even bigger Sword of Ikaria. And I think Komodo is going to take this one. Paradox is going to need
Umbran Reaper off the top would be huge. Impending Doom. Paradox certainly has draws. We've seen this game swing back and forth, but he does need to have them this turn.
Yeah, he needs them about now. Putting any unit down in front of Komodo is at least a start. So even something like this 2/2 Twilight Raptor at least gives him a chance.
Yeah, it does act as a redraw, giving him an additional turn. We'll see if he drew another creature or a creature that actually trades profitably with the weapon. It looks like he has nothing. Paradox will do the concession seek power, revealing he has nothing.
Yeah, and Komodo will go ahead and take that game. And that was kind of unfortunate there towards the end for Paradox, not being able to find enough units, or not being able to find really what he needed was an Umbran Reaper, like you said. Like an Umbran Reaper would have put Komodo in just such a bad position. Komodo would either have had to clear the Umbran Reaper and just die, which obviously wasn't an option, or vanquish away the Umbran Reaper and then lose your weapon without getting to swing with it, which is also not a very great option. So yeah, Umbran Reaper was really the card that needed to be found there, but unfortunately not going to be the case. Komodo taking that one over Paradox 2-1 with Armory.